Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics, back with a year in words, and this is our final month. We actually started with the month of February because we started that in January. We were shipping kits out the month before, giving people plenty of time to make and display their project for the month coming up. So this is our final year in words. This is now for January. Hey, if you're just seeing us, what we've been doing all along, we had a fun wall hanging club that did sell out. We've been doing supporting videos all along of how to make the piece blocks. And of course, you can always pick up the pattern if you love the wall hanging. Some limited kits, some small amounts of that remaining, but maybe you just want to be able to make the wall hanging yourself from your stash, or maybe it's some fabrics you're seeing on the website. We'll be going over how to make the snowball block, super easy, and just a touch of hand embroidery to be able to complete our series. So you'll of course be getting your different colored fabrics you'll need to make your snowball block. And just like we've been doing before, you'll start off with cutting your applique background to that size, laying everything out, ironing everything down, stitching that down with, of course, the beautiful coordinating thread. And from the remainder of that fabric, we'll be using that beautiful blue to be snowballing the corners. And that's what your block will be looking like. So we'll get our beautiful teal fabrics here. And I just want to show you an option. I covered this on a previous video. In fact, last month for December, I touched on the corner clipper. But just in case you didn't see that, I'll cover that here again. The way that I learned to snowball corners is to just take my square, this is the right side, place that right side together, and to just draw a line from one corner to the other. I don't know if you can see that. I did that off camera before we started rolling today from corner to corner, and we just sew on the line. And we can certainly go do that real quick. Let me get my iron warming up. We're going to want a nice hot iron. So let me just go ahead and get that started. That's how we all learned. And there's nothing wrong with just repeating that step in all four corners, of course, being mindful of the way you place that on there so that it's snowballing the corners and that's not being oriented like that. Of course, the diagonals need to be here and here. But let me just go sew that down. And then I want to show you an option, a cool tool. Again, I talked about it in December and I think some of the previous months as well. But let me just go sew on that line, making sure I have my square well seated right into that corner. That's your really most important job here, and to sew right on the line. One thing you might think about doing, I've kind of learned this in time from quilting, these decades I've been enjoying this wonderful hobby, is when I have such a small area. This is my block, really, and I don't have a long distance. That's not very far. Sometimes just to add strength, I will shorten my stitch length if there's just a small little portion I'm sewing on there, because I want more stitches in the given space. I've backed off my stitch length today to 2.1. Normally I'm sewing at about a 2.5. So that's just something to maybe think about. Now, if I do make a mistake, of course, it's a lot more effort to seam rip that out because the stitches are quite short. But that's just maybe a possibility. And before I trim anything away, I like to press to the outside, making sure I have a nice 90-degree corner and I don't want to seam rip, as I just talked about. Once I'm happy with what I'm seeing, really I can grab a straight edge, and I like this ruler. It's got my nice dashed line. I lay that on my stitch line and I'll just cut a 1/4 inch away from that, and you might want to just repress. You can certainly repeat that, like I mentioned before, for all four corners, but I want to show you another really cool tool, and that's the corner clipper. The corner clipper saves you the time of drawing the line as well as later going back to trim away. Here's what I mean. We know that if we put this next one on, we would be grabbing our straight edge, grabbing our friction pen, drawing the line, positioning that right in that corner, And we know we would sew on that line, and this is the part that's trimmed away. The corner clipper saves us this time of not only drawing the line, but then later trimming it away. So we'll lay this here, again, seating that square exactly where it belongs in the corner, no shifting. It needs to be stacked right on top. And now we come in with the corner clipper. See the guidance I have from the overhead camera? I have this guidance, diagonal to diagonal. I'm lined up here. I have a dash line along the bottom here, along the side. I mean, I have all kinds of guidance here that I'm in the right location. I simply make the cut, and now I will come back and sew diagonal to diagonal with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's go ahead and do that. So as you can see, the corner clipper results, you know, if I held the block up to you, and I will here in just a moment, or show it from the overhead camera, I guess, just as well, you can't tell which side was done with the corner clipper and which was done the traditional way. I just wanted to introduce that to you as a possibility. I love the accuracy of it, and I love that it just saves me a little bit of steps. Now, of course, you'll just do the same thing down in these corners, and you'll repeat that for all of those snowball blocks, sewing them together. And then, of course, you'll measure that length. Whatever that length is of the assembled snowball blocks, that's the size that you'll be trimming the applique unit to, marrying those two up and pressing toward your applique at that point. Now, one thing you might want to do actually prior to joining this section with this section is now going ahead and doing some of the hand embroidery. Very simple on this one. We've done this on some previous ones, just an X here and then some French knots there. In fact, I will just demonstrate that to you. That way you don't have to go revisit those videos. For French knots, you know, sometimes you just draw a simple little circle. And then the X's, of course, I'll just demonstrate that. Pretty straightforward. I think those have a slight curve. You know what, just make them straight, it's easier. I'm just gonna do a straight line here. So we're gonna break the camera here, pause for just a moment so we can do some close-up photography so we can get you refreshed on that hand embroidery. So I have my 2 strands of embroidery floss knotted, and I'm using a Richard Hemming size 4 embroidery needle. Inexpensive, effective needles, very sharp. So I'm just going to go with the easy one first. Sure, might as well start with that. Just come on up and straight across. If you do decide you want to have a little bit of a curving X, you could certainly do that. If you do decide that, I would go to the midpoint and come up again. But if you want to just go simple on that, just go straight across and make the X. And that's all you really need to do. French knots. French knots, again, I like to use 2 strands of embroidery floss. You can increase the density or diameter of the French knot by increasing what's called the wraps, or you could increase the number of strands of embroidery floss from maybe 2 to 4. So that's just some ideas. So with a French knot, we simply come up. If you're right-handed, you will take the embroidery floss in your left hand, and I like to be very horizontal with it. Similarly with this needle, I'm very horizontal with it. And when I talk about a wrap, the needle is now in front of the embroidery floss, and I wrap it around it 1 time. Now I'm going to pivot and go right back into the hole that I created when I came up. Notice I'm holding tension on the left here until I can't hold it anymore. And that's the knot. Now let's say that I'm like, that's not dense enough. I want that to be more significant. Remember what our 2 options were, was to either increase the wraps to maybe 3 instead of 1, or I still do one wrap, but maybe I use 4 strands of embroidery floss, probably creating really the same result. Again, to my left, if I'm right-handed, needle is horizontal. 1, 2, and 3 wraps. Again, let's pivot, going back down through the hole that we came up, we kind of created when we came up, and we'll go back down, hanging on until you can't hang on anymore and you have to let go. Now you can see that while I still use 2 strands of embroidery floss, the 2 extra wraps create a density, a diameter that's about twice as big. So that's really how you manage French knots. They're fun to do. They're one of the oldest stitches of hand embroidery. So that's all the hand embroidery included on that, both for the snowman's eyes, his mouth, and then of course the X's are for his, in lieu of buttons. Okay, so that's the hand embroidery details on the Year in Word in January. So you can see for the Year in Words January, we saved the easiest for last. Actually, super easy to make the snowball blocks, and of course those are very doable hand embroidery stitches. I have enjoyed being able to teach you different piece blocks all throughout this series. I hope you've enjoyed that as well. We would love to hear from you. Of course, we'd love to have you subscribe. Let a friend know as well, because there's much more coming your way, of course, at Shabby Fabrics. Now, as they say, but wait, there's more. I couldn't resist at the end of this series, the fact that the block was so simple. I felt like I needed to give you something a little bit more. So really for the very first time, I will be using the BERNINA stitch regulator, and we have put together the quilt top along with the batting. Actually, we're using fusible fleece and the backing. And now I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of free motion quilting. I've never done this on camera. I am not good at this, but you know what? This is a fun wall hanging. Why not give it a try? I did a little bit of practicing on kind of a quilt sandwich. So this will be the second time I'm doing this. I invite you to join in, be kind. For all of you very skilled top quilters, long arm quilters, I appreciate you so much. I send my projects out. They come back beautifully quilted. But I just wanted to reach out. If you've never given this a try, hey, let's try this together. I'll be setting about my machine with the stitch regulator, which is a nice little aid. Maybe you're sewing on a different type of machine. Maybe get some feed dog covers and get whatever equipment you might need to give it a try. So I will head over to my machine and get that set up to do a little bit of free motion quilting. So of course here, you might want to draw something in. I'm not super comfortable with that. They have a beautiful swirl in our actual one, and we can kind of zoom in on that so you're able to see that. I think she actually kind of came in, came back out, and then she continued down in the next snowball. I'm just going to kind of start maybe in this area in here and try to work my way around with kind of a stipple. So let's go ahead and get started. And keep in mind, we want to try to keep moving, try to keep, not get scared, have a plan. We want to kind of come in, kind of work in an area, and maybe come on over. And by all means, if you are watching this, we would love to hear you post some pointers, encouraging others to give it a try. Where's the optimal place to start? We would love to get your feedback. I would love that too. All right, we're going to get started here. All right, wish me luck. Let's go. Let's keep moving. Uh-oh, I'm getting stuck. Oh no, I don't know how to get out of that. Let's see how we did, guys. I got really panicked in here. Well, actually, I got out of that one. This one, I can see I went back over top of my stitching, but this is a lot of fun. Hey, I'll cut my thread here. You probably see me do enough of that, but let's just look at that. You know what I kind of learned was it's better if I kind of keep moving and go even a little bit faster, because if I'm going slower, it was worse. It seems like if I kind of kept moving along, and like here, instead of coming up the center, I kind of come up here and maybe come back down. But again, me being so completely inexperienced at this, I would love to have, you know, the varsity team make some comments here. If you have been doing long arm quilting, maybe with your machine, giving people pointers in the comments, we welcome that. So I'll come back here to the forward camera. You know, you guys, if you've been watching my videos, I make mistakes. My seam ripper is always on deck because I'm using it. Quilting is not about perfection, it's about having fun. And when you make mistakes, you know what, we correct them, we get to do it again. So I want to encourage you to give things a try, maybe new presser feet, maybe some decorative stitches. You know, we kind of get in this rut as quilters. So thanks for letting me just give it a whirl today with some top quilting. And I definitely look forward to seeing you on a future Shabby video.